Hello everybody, Revimegas here. Recently, Coral Island has become streamable. Yes, the game has been in development for a long time. I actually believe I backed this game last year, March of last year. And since then, it's gone through a bunch of different changes, and the gameplay has changed up, the graphics, the characters, all that kind of stuff has changed as the development cycle has gone on. Well, with the game going into early access and finally being available soon for people to purchase and get into the early access, let's go over some of the things and see if it's worth picking up. Now, to start off, this game will feel very familiar to people who have played Stardew Valley. The game even starts off with the initial you come into town, just through boat as opposed to a bus, and even your initial missions that you will start with are very reminiscent of Stardew Valley, such as going around meeting all the different villagers, pretty much setting up your initial crops and all that. You also do initially meet the carpenters as the very first character, similar to meeting Robin in Stardew Valley. It's a good intro, and honestly, there doesn't need to be a lot of big story with a game of this caliber. Now, when I say that, there are games like Harvestella that are coming out that have to do with like a whole, Square Enix-esque story. And for games like this, you don't really sometimes need that big, huge, world-ending event cataclysm, especially with the farming simulator. So let's take it on the early access, the good, the bad, and what, is a big issue. So the good stuff is, obviously, this game will feel like Stardew Valley, just with a 3D coat of paint. The graphics are absolutely beautiful, wonderful. I loved everything about that. There is also skill trees. There are pretty much, your farm is massive. It feels absolutely huge. And it does feel good to actually play this game. There are a couple of weird caveats, such as every tool uses energy, even the scythe, which is different from a game like Stardew. And when you use the scythe, it has a weird hitbox. You kind of have to get used to that, but to optimize, your kind of use, you have to figure out this weird janky hitbox. So not too big of a deal, honestly. You do start off with a good amount of energy, so you don't feel like you're immediately running out as soon as you do anything. It still is a little bit low, and I would like to see a little bit of tweaking on that, but overall it's fine. The second good thing is all the villagers look amazing. There are characters that are absolutely gorgeous and adorable. I will say that the men kind of feel very samey. I didn't feel like there was a lot of variation, and this came into the place with the body style. They look good, but there's not as much variation as I thought there would initially be. You have kind of this big bulky guy and then the slim guy. You don't really have like an in-between, I felt like. Secondly, with this, the women are obviously 10 times, I think, better designed than the males. That's just, maybe it's just, the nature of my preferences. But I think some of the characters, the girls, like the girl that, I think her name's Yuna, that's all tatted up and has the piercings. It's a very different dynamic to some of the other girls who are more, your traditional look. But overall, every character looks beautiful. There are a good amount of characters, and I actually did enjoy kind of getting an idea of what everybody looked like and a little bit of their personality. Also, the map in the town itself, absolutely wonderful architecture, beautiful designs on the buildings, on the, everything, all the little set pieces. You've got like the beach. It has, outdoor dining. It has outdoor seating. It has kind of this very lifeguard-esque feel to it. And it feels like an actual realistic beach like you would see. And I love that. I think that was amazing. I think that's a nice touch in this game. So overall, graphically, beautiful. Feel of the game, beautiful. Everything with that felt good. Now, obviously, this is a very early review, and I haven't gotten all the way through the game, but so far, I do enjoy that kind of stuff. Now, the bad side. Let's start with the first thing about the characters. We'll go ahead and start with that. The characters look good. Some of them feel like they have no personality. When I initially... The initial game is that you have moved into this town. You are brand new. And people don't seem to either react to that or notice. You have a couple of characters that it's very odd. They immediately are like kind of have this hostile personality to you, like, hey, you suck, get out of here. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm just meeting you. Some of the characters have just this like, hello, and that's pretty much their dialogue. It didn't immediately draw me into any characters being like super exciting. I think, once again, I keep saying it, I believe it's Yuna. And if it isn't, if it's Yura or Yuri, very sorry for insulting anybody with that. But her character at least seemed like, hey, I'm glad you're moving in kind of feeling. Whereas I didn't get that with a lot of characters. Also, there was some weird dialogue where characters would just say something that's going on in the town, and I was like, should I know what this is or who that is or what they are? Like, oh, there's a development company that's building this building. And I just sat there going like, what building are you talking about? You're on the beach. Is it over there, over there? Where, what are we talking about? So there was a couple of minor caveats with that. The town layout is also kind of a weird issue. While it's beautiful, there's a lot of pathways, and it feels like your farm is very far away from the rest of the town. In Stardew, this worked because you transitioned from like two scenes. With Coral Island, it kind of feels weird that you walk so far to get to the general store that I can honestly see it being a little bit of an issue in the future. Hopefully there are means to speed up movement, because if there isn't, that's a little bit of it can feel a little bit daunting to run back and forward. And if you do forget something, you honestly just kind of sit there and go like, well, whatever. I'll just forget it for now. And that kind of seems awkward. The other big kind of awkwardness is I really felt like the farm, they do this huge daunting pan out and you see how big the farm is. And it felt very overwhelming at first. You didn't feel like you had this like introduction to it. That's a minor caveat. That's not really a big deal. So mostly my main issues with that are just like the town feels a little bit weirdly sparse and spread out. And I feel like another huge detriment with that is that since there are only, I believe, 40-ish villagers, there's a lot of space in the town that at times it feels very empty and dead. Stardew Valley Expanded did a little bit of a fix with that, I believe, where you could have random villagers come in. They didn't have like an actual portrait, but they had just basic dialogue. And it was kind of like having bodies to fill out the scene. And I really enjoyed that in Stardew Valley Expanded because it did make it feel like, hey, there's actually more than just the townsfolk coming into town. You do have people that like are from outside. Obviously, since this is an island, might be a little bit hard, but it does seem like there is a tourist industry, which you would think that would kind of bring people in. So my big suggestion would be there's a lot of neat set pieces, but there's nobody interacting with them as much, so it kind of feels weird when you don't have them filled out. When you have these big empty spaces, lots of outdoor dining, and nobody's there, it just feels weird. It kind of just feels like an empty space. Now, the ugly portions of Coral Island. Unfortunately, Coral Island has some bugs with it being early access. I have only run into a few different bugs that weren't game breaking, such as having people do like weird seating, moving through objects, going into closed buildings they shouldn't have. Now, I have heard people have had issues where characters have completely frozen, T-posed, not moved, not been able to interact with, stuff like that. And that's a big issue that can pretty much ruin the game. I've also heard of people just having like soft locking and having issues where crops are no longer sellable or buyable, which can pretty much end the game right there. So I'm hoping that since this has not actually reached the Steam store, there will be kind of a patch to fix some of these initial game-breaking issues right away. So it's a little bit hard to immediately recommend it off of those bugs. Now, like I'm saying, I have not run into any of those yet, so for me, the game is still fine, but buyer beware kind of thing. So overall, do I think this will be a game that'll completely surpass and overtake Stardew Valley? And right now, I don't know if it will. The actual design and everything looks like it could. I do think it's better than a game like my time at Sandrock, where it felt cartoonish. This feels a little bit more realistic. You still have the great character designs, and you do have a nice fresh coat of look and paint on it, which really does add a lot of the charm to the game. I think it's going to be an interesting take, and I'm still excited to see it move throughout early access. It has been in development for a while, so I'm hoping they're going to smash a lot of these bugs, get that all taken care of, and really button up the game. As someone who did play Stardew Valley, and a lot of these games in early access that I play on the farming side, I'm excited to see the development, and I do hope it continues to develop and grow. And as it does, I will obviously, bring back more videos on this and showcase more of it. But I hope you guys kind of get this feel for if this is a game you should buy or if you should wait a little bit. But my recommendation is try out Coral Island. I think it's great. I'm excited to play more of it. And until next time, this is Raven Mega saying I'll catch you later.